Sophie from Landmark Realty. How may I help you today?
Hey, I'm looking for a property in Albany.
Great. Albany is a wonderful area. Could you tell me what type of property you're looking for? For example, are you interested in a single-family home, condo, or apartment?
Yeah, I'm looking for a townhouse actually.
Got it, a townhouse in Albany. How many bedrooms are you looking for?
From 3 to 5 bedrooms.
Perfect. 3 to 5 bedrooms. Are there any specific amenities you'd like in the property? For example, a pool, garage, or anything else?
Yeah, a backyard would be great.
A backyard. Got it. Lastly, what's your budget for this property?
Probably about $500,000.
Here are 2 townhouses in Albany that match your preferences. 139 Union Street. Price, $393,788. Bedrooms, 5. Amenities includes a backyard, 2. 987 Fifth Avenue. Price, $366,766. Bedrooms, 3. Amenities includes a backyard. Both are within your budget and have the backyard you're looking for. Do any of these catch your eye? Or would you like to book an in-person tour for one of them?
Yeah, actually, I would like to book a tour for the 139 Union Street property.
Great choice. When would you like to schedule the tour for the property at 139 Union Street? Let me know the date and time that works best for you.
Yeah, how about 2 p.m. tomorrow?
The 2 p.m. slot tomorrow is available. Could you please provide your name and email so I can finalize the booking for you?
Sure, my name is Nathan and my email is hna6300@gmail.com.
Your tour for the property at 139 Union Street has been successfully booked for 2 p.m. tomorrow. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Have a great day, Nathan.
All right, thank you. What you have just seen is a real estate voice agent similar to what I built for a client who owns a real estate agency. So the voice agent seamlessly picks up the phone, gather information about the lead's property needs, such as what type of home they're looking for, the number of bedrooms, any amenities, and then it was able to query the property database, which in this case I'm using Google Sheets for. So if you remember in the conversation, the user mentioned Albany, and then the number of bedrooms from 3 to 5, and then the voice agent was able to pull up the exact properties that fit this description, these requirements. And finally, if the user would like to schedule a viewing of any of the recommended property, the agent would ask for their availability and then book the tour directly into their Google Calendar right here with the address of the property as well. As you can see, this AI voice agent can do a lot, from answering questions about the properties, gathering information from the leads about their property needs, recommend properties to them based on a database, and then help them book a tour to view the property in person if they want to. So doing a lot of the stuff that the human agent would have to do, this would help free up a lot of the time and effort that the human real estate agent would have to do, so that they can focus on what they do best, what they really want to do, which is closing deals and building client relationship. What also makes this voice agent really valuable to business is not just about saving costs and time, but also generating new revenue from the appointments, from the calls that would have been missed, especially during peak hours, during non-business hours, and peak seasons where the human agent just cannot handle all the calls coming their way. So what makes an AI voice agent such an attractive prospect to businesses that are looking to scale? Well, first of all, it's available 24/7, something that a human agent cannot do. So an AI voice agent can handle calls around the clock without breaks, ensuring that the agency would never miss a lead or inquiry, even if it's outside regular business hours. It's also about scalability. An AI voice agent can manage multiple calls simultaneously, something that the human agents cannot do as well, especially during peak times or busy listing seasons. There will be a lot of calls coming in at the same time, and human agents can easily become overwhelmed with that. In terms of consistency, an AI voice agents also tend to provide a more uniform and consistent response, ensuring that every client interactions is professional, accurate, and aligned with the business's brand, unlike humans who might have off days or inconsistencies. There would be very limited training needed once the voice agent has been fine-tuned and tested. So unlike a human staff who requires onboarding and ongoing training, an AI voice agent can be updated instantly with new property listings, services, policies, always keeping them up to date with very minimal added effort. And finally, in terms of data collection and insights, an AI voice agent would automatically log the conversations that they have with the users, so that the business owner can always review the conversations and fine-tune, improve the voice agent over time. And data would also be gathered, offering a lot of valuable insights to client preferences through the conversations, popular property types that maybe the user, the lead is asking for, but the business might not have yet, and peak inquiry times to inform the business strategy. What's more fascinating is that we know these AI voice agents will only be getting better over time, especially with a lot of advancements recently with the real-time API from OpenAI. And in fact, if we compare the voice agents that I built just a month ago compared to this one, I think you will be able to see some quite noticeable improvements in both the responsiveness as well as the naturalness of the conversation with the AI. And this is partly due to a new platform that I have been exploring and building on recently, Retell AI. So Retell AI is an AI voice agent development platform that is quite similar to Vapi, the tool that I've been using to build projects that I have showcased on this channel so far. And while they are very similar, I think there are certain aspects that I think Retell is doing really well that I actually do prefer using Retell for compared to Vapi. And I will outline these comparisons and these different benefits as I walk you guys through the solution. Let me give you guys a quick walkthrough of Retell first, as I think many of you guys might not already be familiar with the platform. So this is the first screen that you would see after signing up with Retell, and I really like the way that the UI is being structured here. I find it quite easy to find the things that I'm looking for. So you can see there's a knowledge base here that you can use to create and set up your knowledge base for your voice agents. This is where you can connect the phone numbers using Twilio, for example, so that you can assign a voice agent to a phone number. Here's where you will see the call histories of all the calls that your voice agents have made, and I will go through this section in more detail actually because I find it quite interesting. There's also places for us to manage our billing, invoices and payment methods, manage our API keys and webhooks, the typical functionalities that we would need for a voice agent platform. The first thing that you will likely want to do is to create a new voice agent, and here Retell allows you to choose what kind of voice agent you would like to build depending on the complexity of it. So if the voice agent that you are building is only expected to handle a short and simple conversation with limited instructions and tools, then you can start with a single prompt agent, and Retell already provides some quite handy templates for that. However, if you are trying to build a voice agent that needs to handle more complex, longer conversations where the conversation actually has different states and each state requires different instructions and tools, then you might be better off with a multi-prompt agent, which is actually what I'm going to use, what I did use for the project that I built, that I demoed to you guys. And what a multi-prompt agent allows you to do is to define each different state of the conversation in a standalone building block with separate prompt, tools, and triggers, and so on. And so this will allow the prompt at each different state of the conversations to be shorter, more concise, and focused, while also making the choices of the tools and functions trigger more confined and more relevant. To me, this is very important, and this is actually a quite impactful feature of Retell AI. If you have built AI voice agents before, then I think you probably have encountered cases where the voice agent doesn't really follow your script and instructions correctly, consistently. And this is likely due to the fact that as the conversation becomes more complex and longer, and the system prompt also becomes longer and more complicated, the agent can sometimes become confused and overwhelmed with too much information that it needs to process. So separating the agent based on the different phases of conversations like this, I have found to actually be quite an useful way to make the voice agent more accurate, consistent, and reliable. And if you think about it, this is also how humans behave as well. When we are given too much information, we also tend to be overwhelmed. But that's probably a topic for another day. Now, let's explore how our real estate voice agent is built using a multi-prompt setup in Retell AI. We now go ahead and click on a voice agent. This is the main interface that we would see, and we would see a couple of things. First, you will see the voice agent's overview information underneath this name. And just like in Vapi, you'll be able to find the detailed breakdown in terms of cost as well as latency of the voice agent in different aspects. Then underneath that, you'll be able to choose what AI model you want to configure and use for processing, as well as the voice that you would like the voice agent to speak as. And there are a lot of good built-in ones in Retell already, but you can also add custom voices from 11 Labs. And Retell even allows you to directly clone your voice from here instead of having to go to 11 Labs, which can be quite handy. Here you can just upload an audio clip. Right here you will be able to find more advanced settings that you can configure for your voice agent. First, there are functions. These are the actions that the agent can trigger during the calls, and here Retell already does offer some common functionalities by default that you can utilize, such as end call and call transfer to a human agent. They also have built-in integration with cow.com for checking availability and booking on calendar, which can help speed up development a lot. For this particular project though, I'm not going to use it because I already have my appointment booking set up in make.com, but it's really useful to know that I have the option to use cow.com quickly when I need it for future projects. And finally, we can also create custom functions, which is something that I will leverage and show you guys how to do, because this is how we will connect our voice agent to our make.com scenarios. Another very important part of the voice agent is the knowledge base, and it can be set up here. So if I click on adding a new knowledge base, then a new tab would be opened, and you can set up your knowledge base using many different methods. You can upload a file like a PDF or a document, or you can add text immediately in here and use that as part of the knowledge base as well. One thing that I really do find quite handy in Retell is the ability to add web pages as the source of your knowledge base for the voice agent. This is really useful because a lot of businesses already have websites with their most up-to-date information about the business, and so by leveraging the websites that exist already, we can reduce the effort from our side as developer, as well as the client side, having to set up the knowledge base manually, so we can use the web pages here instead. There are many other settings that you can use to configure your voice agent as well, in terms of the speech settings, the call settings, post-call analysis, and so on. I'm not going to go over all the settings in this video because it would become too long, and I want to focus on building the real estate agent that I showed you guys earlier. That said, if you are familiar with Vapi already, which I suspect a lot of you guys might be, then you feel right at home here in Retell. And even if you are completely new to voice agent development, that you're just learning, I would argue that Retell is actually easier to learn compared to Vapi from my personal experience. I think the Retell team really did a great job of simplifying the UI to highlight the most important settings and functionalities that we would need as voice agent developers, while still offering a lot of depth for more advanced use cases. Here you can also find a dedicated tab for testing purpose in Retell, and I will cover this separately in a different section of the video later on after we finish building the agent, because I think there are a lot of interesting stuff here. It deserves its own section. First, let's talk about the system prompt. Here you can see that I'm only specifying the universal, the common context and instructions that the agent should follow throughout the entire conversation. Notice that I'm not specifying any instructions related to specific functions, specific parts of the conversation, like property recommendation, appointment booking, or any operations for that matter. And that is because we will construct each operation using their own standalone state with their own prompt and functions. Remember, this is a multi-prompt setup, not a single prompt setup. If we click on the edit prompt tree section here, this is where we can set up the different states of the agent, and each state is basically a logical unit of the conversation with its own instructions and tools. So states are very useful for cases when the conversation between the AI and the user is quite long and complex, with multiple parts influencing each other. For example, in our current project, there are two main components, right? The first component is asking the user for their property needs and preferences, then query the database to find the suitable properties and recommend them to the user. And then the second component of the conversation of the agent is that if the user finds a property that they are interested in and they would like to schedule a tour, then we would trigger the functions to check for availability and book the tour for them inside Google Calendar. In this case, each of the components are independent and complex enough that I think it would be beneficial to build them using individual states. So this will allow each state to be more streamlined and focused, helping the agent to become more consistent and reliable when carrying out the task. Let's go through the first state, which is recommend properties. As you can see, I'm instructing the agent to ask for the user's property preferences, like the type, the location first of all, the type of homes they're looking for, the number of bedrooms, any specific amenities, the budget, right? And once enough information is collected for us to find properties, then the agent will call the find property functions to query all of the properties that are suitable based on the information that the user has provided to us. This is where we will trigger the make.com scenario, which is connected to our Google Sheets property database in order for us to give it the information from the user and then to get back the list of properties that are most relevant based on what they want. The function itself is defined right here under the tools section, and similar to how a tool is defined in Vapi, here we need to specify the function's name, the description of the function so the agent knows when to call it and how to use it, as well as the URL which comes from make.com. I will cover this part later in the video, as well as any parameters or inputs that the function should expect. So for this function, we are basically sending to make all the information about the property preferences that the user just told us. The only thing that is a bit different and might require a bit of a learning curve compared to Vapi in Retell is how the parameters are defined. So instead of specifying them in an UI by clicking buttons in Retell, we would need to specify them in a JSON object like what I'm doing here. So as you can see here, I'm specifying each of the properties like the area with its type as string, its description, what it represents, right? Any specific amenities, property type, number of bedrooms. So I'm specifying all this information in this JSON object. don't be overwhelmed by it. It's not as difficult as it might look, just because it's code, because Retell already provides us with plenty of examples that we can use here, and it also has the button that helps us format the JSON so that it's more readable and easier to define. Next, after getting the recommended properties from the voice agent and talking back and forth with them about what kind of properties they want, and hopefully they would find a property that they are interested in, booking a tour to view it in person. Then what we will do next is that we will transition the user into the next state of the conversation, which is schedule a tour. You can see that there is something called an edge, which is basically a connector between our two states, the recommend property states and the schedule tour states. Basically, the edge is where we will define first the condition for when the transitions should happen, when the conversation should be transitioned from one state to another, as well as any variables that we would like to be transferred between the two states. So in this case, right, we only help the user to schedule the in-person tour once they have identified the property that they are interested in viewing. So here, that's exactly what I'm specifying here. The address of the selected property is the information that we want to be passed from this state to this state. And that's the only one that we really care about, because the user has already selected a property that they want to learn more about, that they want to go and view. Depending on the project that we are working on, if we want to specify, if we want to transfer more information from one state to the other, we simply specify them one by one here. Very similar to how we specify these parameters in defining the function earlier. And then in the schedule tour state, this is where we will describe the steps that the voice agent should take in order to help the user schedule a viewing for the selected property. So here the agent asks the user for an ideal time that they would like to book a tour, and then we tell the agent to call the check availability function to see if the time that the user requested is available for the real estate agent to take them for the viewing or not. And if the time is not available, we are going to suggest some alternative time slots based on the real estate agent's availability on Google Calendar. And once an available time slot has been agreed upon by the user and the AI voice agent, then we will go ahead and call the book appointment function to book it, as you see in the demo, with the name of the user, their email, as well as the time that the booking will happen, and the address of the selected property, as you've seen in the demo. And you can see the two functions that I mentioned in the prompt being defined underneath right here, very similar to how we defined the functions in the previous state. So here we are specifying the check availability function with its description, with the URL that we will use to trigger the scenario in make.com, the parameter or input that the function should expect, in this case the requested time that the user would like to book the viewing for. And down here we also do something similar to the book appointment function, where we define its description, the URL from make.com, and any inputs, any parameters that the function would need. In this case, the name of the user, of the person asking for the property viewing, the booking date and time that we will use to schedule the appointment in Google Calendar, the address of the property selected for viewing, and the email of the user, so that we can send them a calendar invite via Google Calendar, like what I showed you in the demo. And as usual, I will leave all the function setup and prompts in the video description so that you can follow along if you want to. So now that we have seen how the voice agent is set up in Retell, let's go into make.com to see how the functions for us to recommend properties, book appointments look like in make.com. So if we are looking back at the recommend properties state in Retell, we are instructing the voice agent to call the find properties function once we have collected all the necessary information from the user, right? And down here we are defining the find properties function in terms of its description, its parameters, and very importantly, the URL. So this URL comes from make.com. It comes from the webhook in make.com. This is where the URL comes from, and what this webhook allows us to do is that it allows us to receive the information from the voice agent after it gets it from the user and sends it to this webhook, so that make.com can utilize this information. So here in make.com, you can see that we are receiving the exact information that the voice agent has collected from the user: the area that they're looking for the property in, the specific amenities, the property type, the number of bedrooms, and the budget. So what's going to happen here is that we are going to use all this information to find and recommend the most suitable properties for the user. So here we have a search rows Google Sheets module that allows us to connect to our property database, which is in Google Sheets for this project. And we are going to use the area as the search parameter in order to find all of the properties that belong to that area in the Google Sheets database. So here you can see that I'm referencing the area parameter that we received from Retell, which has the value Albany here. So what this module is going to do is that it's going to search for all of the entries with the area being Albany, and is going to return all those entries here. As you can see, it's returning all of the properties that has the area being Albany, being located in Albany, as well as all of the information about that property, the amenities, the bedrooms, and budget, so on. So there are 8 properties located in Albany that we can look at, right? But we don't want to recommend all that because the user specifically asked for properties with this following attributes. So what we want to do next is that we want to go through these properties and find the most suitable ones and just return those. So how we're going to do that? First, we are going to transform this list of properties into JSON, because that is the format that we can pass into ChatGPT, which is basically our recommendation engine. And then in ChatGPT, we are basically instructing the LLM to recommend to the user the most suitable properties using 2 sets of information that we have. One, we have the sets of user preferences that we receive from Retell. And then the second information that we have is the list of all the properties that are in the area that they are looking for, which in this case is Albany. So with this information, we are going to ask the LLM to analyze both the user preferences as well as the available properties and recommend to them the properties that best match their preferences. I added some further instructions here in terms of the rules and the formatting, but the LLM in this case basically handles the recommendation itself. And depending on your specific use case, you might want to specify even further instructions on how the properties should be recommended, like prioritizing certain criteria being more important than others. Personally, I like to keep the recommendation engine open-ended first, just to see how well the LLM performs first, and then with more testing, I will see how the results look and provide more detailed instructions in order to fine-tune it further. Using the LLM for this step will also help us build a more flexible recommendation engine where it allows the user to describe their needs in a more flexible and approximate way, more open-ended way, instead of having to be exact. So for example, the user might say things like they are looking for a townhouse or a condo with 3 to 4 bedrooms, and we would still be able to recommend to them all of the relevant properties. Or even there are cases when the price of the property is a bit higher than the user's actual budget that they share with us, but the LLM might still recommend it if it satisfies all of the other criteria. That's why here in the LLM instructions, I'm also telling the AI to give me a short 1-line explanation of the recommendation of the reasoning behind why a property is recommended, so that once we pass this information back to the voice agent, it will have more context about the selection to communicate to the user. So here you can see the content of the recommendation that we are going to pass back to Retell. I have the two functions that we are going to use to help the user schedule the tour if they want to. First, we have the check availability function that basically checks whether the requested time slot is available. And then we have the book appointment function, which basically books the appointment into the user's Google Calendar. Similarly to before, we also have the corresponding make scenarios for this. Here is the check availability scenarios, where we basically receive the time from the user, again using a webhook, and we're going to check to see if that time is available. If it is available, then we are going to tell the Retell agent, no pun intended, that the time is available for booking. Whereas if the time slot is not available, then we are going to check the calendar of the business to see if there are any openings nearby that requested time, and suggest up to 3 alternative time slots to the user. And then once an available time slot has been selected by the user, then Retell is going to send that final time slot to this function in Mac.com, also using a webhook with this URL here that matches the URL that we use in Retell, and is going to basically book the event in Google Calendar using all the information that we have about the user that we collected, such as their name, email, and we are also giving it the address of the property here as well. And I already walked through these scenarios in a lot more details in my restaurant receptionist video, which you can find on screen now somewhere, and as well as in the description below. Now back to Retell. Probably one of my most favorite aspects of the platform is its support for testing. As developers, we all know that building the voice agent is only half the battle. We also need to make sure that the voice agent will follow our instructions and do so in a reliable and consistent manner as well. And that's why testing is so important in voice agent development. That said, it's also one of the parts that can take up a lot of time and effort from us, because we would need to manually make the calls and talk to the voice agent every time we need to test a new scenario. So Retell has a few features to help with this, and you can find them on the right hand side right here. First, we have test audio. This allows us to make calls and talk to the voice agent directly in our web browser, very similar to what we have in Vapi, but in Retell they added a nice touch where as you speak to the voice agent, the content will be transcribed in real time here as text bubbles, for example. Hey, I'm looking for a property in Albany.
Great, Albany is a wonderful area.
Something like that. This is a very handy way for us to potentially spot issues like spelling errors, which is quite common in voice agents. The second option to test within Retell is Test LLM. So unlike the regular audio testing that we just did, this allows us to focus the testing on just the LLM part, so just the logical flow and the functions calling aspect of the voice agent. Personally, I really love this feature because a lot of times the changes that we make and want to test are just related to the logic of the voice agent and not the voice itself. So instead of having to call the agent every time, I can just chat to it, similar to a chatbot. So I can say, I'm looking for a property in Manhattan, right? And then it basically plays out the conversation exactly like how it would in a conversation just with text. And this saves us a lot of time because chatting is obviously faster than speaking, and also in terms of cost because we are not being charged for the transcription and the voice and so on. That would be required for audio processing. Really useful for us is call history, which can be accessed in the main dashboard. So here we can see all of the conversations that our voice agents in Retell have had with end users, even including the ones that we have used for testing. Vapi has this feature too, but again, personally, I really prefer how this is done in Retell. As you can see, we can click on a conversation to see its details. And the first thing that we would see is the high-level breakdown of the call in terms of who is calling, in terms of the cost, and in terms of the duration as well. We can also listen back to the conversation here and even download it if we want to. Then below that, we have the analysis of the call, like whether it was successful or not in terms of whether it achieves its objective, or the sentiment of the user, and so on. And all this analysis criteria can be customized within each voice agent, by the way. Maybe I'll cover that in a different video in the future. Then down here we have a quick summary of the conversation, and finally the detailed transcript. Here you can review the content of the call, and more importantly, you can even review how the functions are being called with the inputs that is being given, as well as the output. This is very useful in terms of testing and debugging the voice agent, especially when there are issues, because instead of having to guess where it went wrong, we will be able to review every detail of the conversation and pinpoint exactly where the issue happened and why it happened. Also has an integration with Hamming AI, which is an automated testing platform for voice agent. Basically, what Hamming allows us to do is to define different personas, including their scenario and context, that we would like to test. Then Hamming will automatically make calls using these personas to our voice agent, then give us a report on how successful or unsuccessful the calls were, as well as how we can further improve it. For example, in our context of developing a real estate voice agent, we can define one persona as someone who is looking for a condo in Manhattan, and there are recommended properties and they can book a tour. And we can have a second persona of someone who is looking for a property in New Jersey and there is no properties that we have available, and so the user would need to be transferred to a human agent, right? So whichever scenarios that we would normally need to validate and test and assess manually, we can do that automatically with Hamming. And because Retell has a partnership with Hamming, we can get 100 test calls for free, which is pretty great. We won't have time to cover Hamming in this video, but let me know if this is something that you guys want to see covered in a future video. And that's how you can build an AI real estate voice agent that can talk to customer, get information from them, recommend properties based on a database, and even book a tour to view the property via Google Calendar. It was also really fun to explore and build in a new platform that I think has really great user experience and a lot of support both in terms of development and testing in Retell AI. If you would like to try Retell AI in your next voice agent project, feel free to use my affiliate link in the description below. It would help support this channel and myself personally. And as a new user, you will also get 60 minutes of free call. And that should be plenty enough for you to get a feel of the platform and see if it's the right fit for you and your projects. Personally, I see a lot of potential in Retell, and I think I will continue to use it for my projects in the future. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content like this in the future. It would mean a lot to me, and it would also help show the videos to other people who might benefit from it as well. And finally, if you are a business or an agency looking to build this kind of systems, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn or schedule a call with me, and we can discuss how we can build these voice agents together. And that's it from me today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.